The restaurant gleamed with crystal chandeliers and polished silverware. Alexander Stone sat at his usual corner table, checking his Rolex for the third time. At 38, he was CEO of Stone Industries, worth millions, and profoundly tired of this routine. This blind date, arranged by his persistent assistant Jennifer, would be his last. After tonight, he'd accept that relationships weren't for him. Just one more, Jennifer had begged. Elena is different. She's not like the others. Please, just give her a chance. Alexander had heard that before. Every woman Jennifer introduced wanted the same thing: his money, his status, his penthouse. Not him. Never actually him. He'd give this Elena exactly 30 minutes, then make his excuses and leave. He had contracts to review anyway. A woman entered the restaurant, and Alexander barely glanced up. Then he looked again. She wore a simple cream-colored sundress, not designer, just pretty. Her brown hair was pulled back casually, and she carried a worn leather bag. She looked nervous as she scanned the room, clearly out of place in this expensive establishment. When her eyes met his, she walked over hesitantly. "Alexander Stone?" "That's me." He stood out of ingrained politeness. "You must be Elena?" "Elena Martinez." She sat down looking uncomfortable. "Thank you for agreeing to this. Jennifer spoke very highly of you." "Jennifer is optimistic about most things," Alexander said coolly, already building his walls. Elena smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. "She warned me you'd be skeptical. She said you've had difficult experiences with dating." "That's diplomatic phrasing." "I can relate," Elena said simply. "I'm a high school teacher. The last man I dated was lovely, until he found out I teach in an underfunded public school instead of working at a prestigious private academy. Apparently, my lack of ambition was concerning." Alexander found himself actually listening. "You're ambitious about education, not salary?" "Exactly. The kids in my school need advocates, not teachers chasing paychecks." She paused. "But that perspective doesn't translate well to dating. Men want someone impressive to introduce to their colleagues, not someone who spends her own money buying students' school supplies." "That's admirable," Alexander said, surprising himself with the sincerity. "It's impractical," Elena corrected, "at least according to most people. Jennifer said you value substance over appearance, but honestly, looking around this restaurant," she gestured at the opulent surroundings, "I'm not sure we're compatible. This place is beautiful, but it's not me at all." Her honesty was refreshing. Most women pretended to love everything about his lifestyle. "Where would you rather be?" "Honestly? The taco truck near my school makes incredible food for a tenth of what this place costs. But Jennifer insisted you always meet dates here." "I do," Alexander admitted. "It's familiar, controlled, and completely impersonal," Elena said gently. "You can maintain emotional distance in a place like this. No real connection happens across a table this formal." Alexander stared at her. "You're very direct. I'm a teacher. I spend my days with teenagers who can smell dishonesty a mile away. Directness is survival." She met his eyes steadily. "So let me be direct now. I don't need your money. I'm not impressed by your watch or your suit or your reputation. Jennifer said you're lonely and tired of pretense. I am too. So if we're doing this, can we skip the performance and just talk like actual humans?" Something cracked in Alexander's carefully maintained armor. "What would you like to talk about? Why did you agree to this date?" "Jennifer said you almost said no. She told me you were different." "I've heard that before." "And were they different?" Alexander thought about the parade of women who'd wanted his credit card, his connections, his last name. No, they all wanted the same things. Money? Status? Yes, Elena nodded. "That must be exhausting. Always wondering if someone actually likes you or just what you can provide." "You sound like you understand." "Different version, same concept. I've dated men who thought dating a teacher meant dating someone sweet and nurturing who'd be a perfect mother someday. They didn't want me. They wanted a fantasy of what a teacher represents. When they discovered I'm opinionated and sometimes exhausted and occasionally drink too much wine after parent-teacher conferences, they disappeared." "How much wine?" Alexander asked, a smile threatening to break through. "Enough that I once left my grocery cart in the frozen food section and went home without it," Elena admitted. I remembered at 10 p.m. and had to go back the next day. The cashier judged me. Alexander laughed, actually laughed, for the first time in months. I once fell asleep in my office and woke up at 3 a.m. still holding my coffee cup. My assistant found me and asked if I'd died. Did you drink the coffee anyway? It was cold, but yes. I have standards, but also no shame. They talked through dinner, real conversation, not interview questions. Elena told him about her students. The one who'd been accepted to college despite homelessness. The girl who'd discovered a love of poetry. The boy who'd finally opened up about his family's struggles. She spoke with passion and exhaustion and fierce protectiveness. Alexander found himself sharing things he never discussed. The pressure of running his father's company. The loneliness of success. The way his wealth had become a barrier between him and genuine human connection. Everyone wants something from me, he admitted. Business partners want deals. Friends want investments. Women want my lifestyle. No one just wants me. Who are you? Elena asked. Without the CEO title, without the money, who is Alexander Stone? No one had ever asked him that. He sat with the question, really thinking. I don't know anymore. I used to love architecture. I'd walk through the city sketching buildings. But I haven't done that in 15 years. Why not? No time. The company demands everything. Or you use the company to avoid everything, Elena suggested gently. It's safer to work than to risk being disappointed by people. You're very perceptive. For someone I met an hour ago, you're very transparent for someone trying so hard to be mysterious, Alexander smiled. What about you? Who's Elena Martinez without the teacher title? Someone who loves terrible reality TV, bakes when she's stressed, and adopts plants she inevitably kills despite the best intentions. Someone who wanted to be a writer but chose teaching because making a difference felt more important than making bestseller lists. Someone who's lonely but picky because I'd rather be alone than be with someone who doesn't actually see me. I see you, Alexander said quietly. Do you? Or do you see a refreshing change from the women who want your money? The question landed hard. That's fair. Can both be true? Maybe, Elena said. But I need to know, if I didn't challenge your expectations, if I was just another nice person, would you be interested? Alexander considered this honestly. I don't know, but I'd like to find out. They left the restaurant and, at Elena's suggestion, walked to her favorite taco truck. Alexander, in his expensive suit, stood in line with her for street food. They ate sitting on a park bench, and he couldn't remember the last time food had tasted so good. This is better than that restaurant, he admitted. Everything tastes better when you're not performing, Elena said. You were performing in there. The cold CEO, the controlled businessman. Out here, you're just Alex, eating tacos on a bench. I like this version better. No one calls me Alex. Would you like me to? Yes, he realized. I really would. They dated carefully over the following months. Elena refused expensive gifts, insisting on splitting checks, maintaining her independence. She challenged him constantly on his workaholic tendencies, his emotional walls, his fear of vulnerability. You've built a fortress, she told him one evening. It's very impressive. But you're lonely inside it, and you won't let anyone in because you're terrified they'll want to loot the place instead of keep you company. And you want to keep me company? I want to know you. The real you. Not the CEO, not the millionaire. The man who loved architecture and hasn't sketched in 15 years. That's the person I'm interested in. Alexander started sketching again. Elena sat with him during walks through the city, patient while he drew buildings, asking questions about his process. She introduced him to her students, who treated him like a normal person and asked him uncomfortable questions about wealth inequality. Your girlfriend's students made me defend my entire business model, Alexander told Jennifer, slightly traumatized. Good, Jennifer said. You need people who challenge you. A year after their first date, Alexander proposed, not at an expensive restaurant, but at the taco truck where they'd had their real first date. He didn't have a ring yet because he'd wanted to design it with her, knowing she'd hate anything ostentatious. I was planning to never date again after that night, Alexander said. I was so tired of pretense and performance. Then you showed up and insisted we skip the act and just be human. You saw through my walls before I'd even finished building them. You demanded I be myself, and you loved that person even when he was difficult and closed off and scared. Elena cried, saying yes. You were planning your last blind date. I was planning mine too. I was so tired of men who wanted a fantasy teacher wife. Then you actually listened when I talked about my students. You funded the entire school's supply budget anonymously. You learned all their names. You saw that teaching isn't just my job, it's who I am. At their wedding, Jennifer gave a speech about the blind date she'd almost given up on arranging. Alex told me he'd do one more blind date, then never again, Jennifer said. Elena told me the same thing. They were both done with trying. But I knew they were perfect for each other, two people exhausted by pretense, desperately wanting authenticity. I just needed to get them in the same room. The rest was them choosing to be real with each other. Years later, Alexander would tell people that Elena saved his life without knowing she was doing it. I was suffocating in my own success, he'd explain, surrounded by people who wanted my money but not me. Elena showed up to that restaurant in a simple dress with no agenda except honesty. She challenged me, saw through me, and loved me anyway. Not despite my walls, but through them. And you? People would ask Elena. What did he give you? Someone who listens, she'd say. Who values my work even though it doesn't make money? Who funded my school without telling me, so I wouldn't feel obligated? Who learned to be vulnerable because I refused to love a performance? We saved each other from lives of polite loneliness. Because sometimes the last chance is actually the first real one. Sometimes the person who challenges your defenses is exactly who you need. And sometimes, cold millionaires and humble teachers discover that genuine connection doesn't happen in crystal restaurants. It happens on park benches, over street tacos, when two exhausted people finally stop performing and start being real. If this moved you, share and subscribe for more tales about authentic love transcending expectations. Comment about someone who saw the real you beneath the walls. Those people change everything.